Hey YouTube, I'm Jeremiah. We're going to talk today about the intake. What is the intake all about? You might have done therapy before, maybe you've never done therapy. Well, there's an initial process called the intake that often happens with the majority of therapists, or at least we're supposed to. And the intake is what I want to talk about today. First and foremost is this thing. It's called the intake package. Many of these you can find online. If you go to New Life Counselling, for example, .ca, you're going to find a few things below. You're going to find the intake package. Download it today, I think it says, and then you can fill it out, whether it's online or whether you're printing it off or you come to the office and, oh, I forgot my paper at home, and you just actually physically fill it in. And all it is just basically what is known as a consent for services to be able to do counseling. But it also provides, I guess you could almost say it's a form of a contract going, hey, when in this case, this form here at the very bottom of the page, that's where you print your name, sign your name, put the date down. It creates a place to where you can actually, it creates a contract to go and saying, hey, I'm agreeing with whatever the terms are that are within the intake package. Maybe you have insurance, maybe you don't have insurance. Those are all things that need to be talked about, okay? Because, my personal preference, there's nothing worse than someone going, oh yeah, my insurance will cover it. And then only to find out a couple sessions later, my insurance doesn't cover it. And it's like, oh, that's such a takeaway. So I try to make sure that my clients know ahead of time, is your insurance covered? Because it may not be. The good news is that it is way better than what it was even 5-10 years ago. But there are still occasional services out there, insurance companies, that do not have, at least with what I do, terms like psychotherapy or clinical counseling within their insurance, which means they will not be covered. Okay, well, what's that all about? All right, well, since we're talking about insurance, which is often part of the intake process, let's take a brief moment to talk about that, if that's okay. The simplest way to describe it is simply this, okay? I myself am what is known as a clinical counselor or psychotherapist who provides psychotherapy. These are all these interchangeable words that kind of basically mean the same thing. Semantically, I know it can be argued, but that's my perspective on the situation. Okay, it's my little political side comment for the day. All right, now the way I view it is it's like a spectrum. Over here, we've got this group of people called social workers. And some social workers work towards what's called their masters in counseling. And sometimes they will have their social work, but it has to have a clinical component, or at least it's supposed to have a clinical component. In other words, they've got some counseling training and experience. And then they are allowed to do counseling, all right? And I would say 99% of insurance covers that. The other side of the spectrum is this thing called psychologists. That's not to confuse with the one that is above, the one that shall rule them all, like the Lord of the Rings, which is the psychiatrist. They are a medically trained doctor that basically is allowed to prescribe medication, that's allowed to, they will sometimes do therapy with their clientele. But often it's for hey, they're dealing with anxiety, what's the best medication and stuff, and then they will collaborate or delegate and then send them to one of these 3 tiers. The one over here, as I was just saying, is psychologists, all right, or psychology, okay? Not to be confused, because everyone does psychology, but they have a specific title that is title protected called a psychologist. All right. Now, within at least Canada, in Alberta, which is where this is being filmed, that psychologist also 99.9% of the time will be covered. In the middle of those 2 realms of social worker and psychologist are those like myself who are in that clinical counseling realm, who are in that, who do psychotherapy or provide psychotherapy services. It's kind of like a scope of practice, which is another discussion maybe for another day. But at any rate, all 3 of these deal with your challenges, which might be anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, couples therapy, relational challenges, just stress at work, at home, all these different things, the reason that bring a person to go, I wonder if I should go to counseling and see them. So I just wanted to explain that. Now, going back to the intake package, part of the intake is again to express those boundaries. Hey, this is where I might go, this is what I do. This is where another therapist might go, this is what I do or what they do. And then at the end of the day, the form is signed and then the intake begins. Well, it's already begun with the intake package, but the actual discussion. Now, where a lot of people get confused and messed up or even sometimes hurt, I would suggest, and this is why I try to be very clear with the clients that come in, at least, that come and sit in this chair, is that when we're doing the intake process, it's very different. There is a therapeutic component to it, but it is not necessarily always therapy. The why I'm here, how I'm going to get supported, what are the tools, what are the strategies that are going to help me to be able to deal with all of these issues. What the intake is it allows the therapist, like myself or the other person that you're working with, to be able to gather information at a faster level than normal, if possible, when possible, to be able to gather that information so then they can start formulating a plan. And depending on the therapist, they will tell you this is the plan we're going to move forward in, or it might be a collaborative approach. Hey, I'm wondering if this is something that you might be interested in, or this is where I go, what are your goals and all that stuff, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So it's really an information gathering. What's your name? Where do you live? Have you signed the paper? Do you understand? This is what we do. These are the boundaries. And now what brings you in here? Well, I'm dealing with this ... You name it, whatever that is that you might be thinking of or are going to therapy for. From there, it allows the therapist to be able to formulate a plan of attack. Now, some therapists have specific modalities and styles of therapy that they do, and they go, oh, this is what we're going to do. I personally have some of those, but I also find that one size, unfortunately, just doesn't fit all. There's a thing that I've talked about in other videos where I do a thing called accelerated resolution therapy, ART, all right, is the abbreviation for it. All right, it's an eye movement therapy, okay, that actually has really helped out a lot of people to be able to get through things quicker, get to the root issue, get in, get out, and have relief and actually be able to move on in a positive way within life. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't always work on people. There's a percentage of the population that I'll do this and I'll go, this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. So I have to go to a different modality, all right, to be able to do it. So some therapists specialize in one or two things only, and that's what they advertise. Other therapists, they will focus on, more of an interdisciplinary approach, and it's more of a generalist is what the term is. So they'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they're trained in it, all right? So I myself have, I always say I have about, I hate to say this actually, I'm admitting to it, guilty confessions of a therapist time, right? I have over 35 years in not-for-profit work and support and experience, all right? And in that time, in the last, I don't know what it is now, around 15 to 20 years, somewhere around there, I have a counseling background that I have supported. I've met one-to-one with clients, families, individuals, all sorts of different backgrounds, which actually has led as an outcome to be really that term generalist. That's kind of what I am. But I have a very strong passion for working with couples, working with individuals that are just looking for wholeness, who are looking to deal with different situations. And that's often where those terms come up, depression, anxiety, stress, all that kind of stuff. All right, whether it's within relationships or the individual, my own relationship with myself. That's just me, and there's other therapists that specialize in other things and focus energies on other areas. But how we do it is often then explained in that intake process. Along with the intake process and getting information, it's gathering that data. You know, that's the stereotype of the movie. Tell me about your childhood. Well, it sucked. It was terrible. Or it was okay childhood. It was good. It was high school. That's where things got disastrous. Or, man, everything was awesome. And in my, 40s, in my 50s, in my 60s, just everything that I've done is not working. I'm stuck. It's like everything's unraveling. Well, that is maybe what is bringing that person into therapy, and the therapist needs to hear that to figure out what is going to be the best strategy or plan or approach to present to the therapist. Now, the other thing, and I mentioned I talk about this too, is that's also where the therapist will often talk about, what are your best hopes or what are your goals to what you want to get out of therapy. I just want to be able to, whatever that is. I'm so shy around people. I just want to have confidence. I just want to be able to talk to people. I freak out whenever I'm around in public and I don't know what to do. Hey, all sorts of different things. I'm just having a really bad marriage and I got to figure out some strategies so, I can keep this marriage going. All sorts of different reasons. But that's what the intake is for. Now, some of that is going to be expressed, like I know here at New Life Counselling, we offer what I call a complimentary 15-minute, either a meet and greet where you come in here in person or a consultation on the phone, either or. I'm good either way that way. And it's where myself or other staff of New Life Counselling will then talk and get some of that initial information. But we still need an intake to be able to figure out the deeper stuff that 15 minutes is just not going to serve, because that's also not a place to where you do therapy or counseling. It's just gathering basic information and explaining stuff. So my personal preference, I try to get as much as that little small stuff like insurance and all that kind of stuff out of the way during the consultation. And then I might ask a quick question, what is it that you are hoping to get out of therapy? And that leads to the goals in the intake process. But from there, when they're in here, that gives me much more room to be able to navigate around what does bring you here, and then I can start asking those deeper questions to be able to figure out what's happening with that individual. Maybe ask some clarifying questions. Maybe the client says something and I go, "Oh, there's something there. Let's explore that a bit," which is then where the therapy leads into. It just may not be during the intake. And then during the second session, I would say 90% of the time, that's where the therapy begins. What's that 10% you're talking about, Jeremiah? All that's just where a person might need to actually have so much history that still needs to be concluded and be expressed in order to be able to gather the full picture. But a therapist like myself is still going to be thinking in the back of my mind, all right, would this modality work? Should I go this direction? Is it about tools? Is it about skill sets? What are we dealing with here? What would serve the best and support the client in the best way possible to help them get what they need and what those goals are and what their best hopes are in doing therapy? All right, YouTube, that's all I got for today. I hope that helps you to understand what the intake process is, and I'll be honest, a little part of me has kind of kept this within the 15-minute range because it's like a consult, really. It's like a consult vlog of sorts, sort of, right? Except you're not here to actually answer questions. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Hopefully, if you're thinking about therapy and whoever you're thinking of asking to get support with in therapy, this will help you with that process. Maybe ask some of those questions that you're wanting to get known about within therapy. So this way you're able to move confidently and sit down in the chair, feel safe, and begin that journey of healing and restoration. All right, YouTube, wherever you're at, I hope the best of whatever you're doing right now. All the best, and we'll catch you later.